Hello, my lovelies. How are you today? I hope everybody's doing well. It's been so wet and rainy lately and just cold. I don't know about you all, but I'm over it. Like, can we get spring yesterday? Because I'm done. Okay. Hello. Welcome to another episode of Evil Lives Here. So I'm trying to get back into a groove of doing my Evil Lives Here. So I'm excited to, whenever I am able to, post a video. For those of you that are new, my name is Erin. This is Ageless Beauty with Erin. Now, the name Ageless Beauty with Erin, and we're doing an Evil Lives Here series. I started out on a channel that was mostly makeup and doing new looks, trying new products, try on hauls, mystery, murder mystery things that I go to. And I still do that. I haven't done a lot of it lately, but then I was doing only that. And I've always really been interested in true crime. And I got to watching this TV show called Evil Lives Here on Discovery. And I became kind of obsessed. So I've been doing, I don't know, what do you call reactions? I don't really think it's a reaction as much as I watch the video, then I come here and we'll discuss that video. So yeah, that's what we are today. So on my channel, you'll either get beauty related objects or true crime Evil Lives Here. And you know, I'm just kind of an equal opportunity type of gal. So you never know what you're going to get. However, I appreciate you for being here, for watching. If you're one of my regulars, you guys know I love you. I can't do this without you. Thank you for the continued support. And if you are new, welcome. I hope you enjoy this. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that like button and keep up with the channel. I have a lot of things planned. I'm really hoping to get a lot of things recorded. I will say I am a full-time employee. I have another job. So, and this last, from Christmas to now, has been just absolutely crazy. But I love doing this, and I'm thinking I'm going to be able to do more as things shift around. I'm still going to be busy, but I'm going to have a little bit more free time at night. So keep up, check in, and hopefully we will get some really good stuff going. I have a lot planned, so stay tuned. Please hit that subscribe button and like it. If you are a tattoo enthusiast as myself, don't forget to check down below for my affiliate link and coupon codes for 20% off at Mad Rabbit products. So that being that, let's get into today's episode. And today we'll be discussing season 3, episode 8. So yeah, if you are just joining in, there are 2 more seasons and 7 more episodes of this season that you need to check out. Go hit them up. I am going in order. Started at season 1, episode 1. So now season 3, episode 8, The Cop and the Killer. This was originally aired on February 26, 2018. I do watch this on Discovery Plus. It's a paid subscription, like $5.99 a month. It's worth it. There are so many cool things on this app. So that's how I am watching. They do have newer episodes on regular TV that you can click. But since I was going back to the beginning, I needed something that I could get back to the beginning with. And there you go. Okay, so if you've never watched it, a few things I want to mention, and I have not mentioned this in a while, but I absolutely love the intro of this show. So they start with some facts. You get to meet the person that's talking, and in this case, we start with this guy talking to us, and he's going to be telling us the story, okay? And we learn that he is the cop in the episode. So it's the cop and the killer. And then Discovery pops up some information or shows live footage of news and broadcast or whatever that was going on during that time. So Discovery tells us that on March 1998, police officer Walt Chavez found himself in an impossible situation with his brother Clay Smith. So, bam. There's a little bit more information than Evil Lives Here usually gives us at first. Like, there's times that I don't know what year or the relation until further in the episode. Many times, like this one, I don't even know what state or city they're in until the end. And that is this case. We don't know where they're at yet. But we know it's 1998. We know Walt is the cop and Clay is the brother and the killer. Okay, so then after it does that, it goes into this really cool intro. It's got this really funky music and some things that pop. I have been a fan of this intro since I started watching it. So I love it. I haven't mentioned it in a while, and I thought I'm gonna talk about it again. So now I'm gonna get started with my makeup as we get talking about the show. So forgive me if I get distracted or get looking elsewhere. As always, everything that I'm using will be logged and tagged in the comment section down below. If you have any questions, thoughts, or comments, please let me know. I'll be glad to help or answer or just say hi. I mean, yeah. So, yeah, just leave me a message, comment. You can, I have a lot of people just, private message me either through the instant messenger or my email address that I provide. And then some people leave comments. I love it all. I try to answer everybody. So, yeah, if you have any comments, let me know. I love to hear them. So, we're going to start with Walt. As I said, he is going to be the main character talking about this story. So this is through his eyes. And he's telling us that I'm sorry, it's not funny, but when I explain why I chuckled there. Okay. So he tells us that his daddy died. When his daddy died, his grandfather told him that he needed to be the man of the house. That it was his time to take care of his brothers and his mother in the house and step up and be a man, right? It's awful, but it's not unheard of. And he doesn't tell us how old he was. He does say like his father died in a plane crash, I believe. I don't have that noted. I want to think it was a plane crash. But anyways, which just opens up a lot of questions, doesn't it? However, that is kind of glossed over and they don't talk about much. Anyways, so, grandfather is telling Walt that it's his turn to step up, be a man, and take care of the family. And then there's a picture of Walt with his grandfather. And, okay, so Walt looks like he's probably 17, 18 years old. I'm like, okay, I understand. If you're that age and your father just died, yes, you would probably step up, help him out, be the man of the house, which I absolutely hate that saying, but either way, you get what I mean. So then Walt tells us that he has a stepfather, and his stepfather married his mom 4 or 5 years after his father died. Very understandable, very nice, respectable time difference. And then they talk about his mom and stepfather having Clay. Now, Clay, Walt says that Clay was, and I quote, the joy of our lives when he was first born, end quote. So they loved him. Clay talks, how much he loves Clay. And many times throughout the story, he talks about how he adored his baby brother, right? So then he says that he was 13 when they had Clay. And I'm like, holy hell, I was completely wrong in the fact that he was a teenager. Think about this, okay? 4 or 5 years after the father died, okay? And then it doesn't say how long it was before they had Clay, but say within the year. So you're talking 13 years, he's 13 years old, minus 5 to 6 years. He was a baby when his grandfather told him he needed to be the man of the house and to take care of his mom and his brothers and the house. That one I was not prepared for. And because I've heard some shit in my life, I've seen some shit in my life, and I've even watched and seen some shit on these shows. But man, that's young to put so much burden on a kid. But a few things. He never really talks about it. Other than that incident where he says that his grandfather told him that, he never mentions it again. So I don't know if it was like a big burden to him or if it was just, the way it was, and that's what was expected. And it might have been leading up to how protective he is of his family and his mom and blah, blah, blah. And then he mentions multiple times brothers. And I believe before Clay came along, Walt had other siblings. But it is never mentioned in the episode. And I did not go in and Google and search to see if I could find anything about it. If you have watched my shows, and if you haven't, you know that I truly value privacy. And if somebody's not mentioned, there's a reason. So I will give them that. And a lot of times, if there's kids involved, I don't look that up either. I just feel like people deserve their privacy. So that's the only thing I can tell you about him having siblings, is that apparently he has siblings. But anyways, I digress because Clay's telling this story here, and I'm over here in Gaga land because he is such a baby, supposed to be taking care of his family. So I'll reel it back in a little bit and talk about what Walt tells us in this story, which is, I don't know which one I want to use. When he was 13, okay, so he talks about how much he loved Clay, how much he was always happy to help. Remember, he is 13, so he's happy to help. He's happy to take care of him, change diapers, feed him, play with him, etc., etc., etc. Most things, kids his age are not interested in. Flat out, plain and simple. A lot of kids are like, I don't want anything to do with the baby. And I would not have been surprised had he come back and said that he just didn't want anything to do with this. But he didn't. No, he enjoyed Clay. He talks about Clay was a beautiful baby. And of course, we get to see pictures of him. He was a cute kid. He absolutely was. And, that he just absolutely loved him. And I find that absolutely amazing. I really do. I have no problem with that. Okay, so Discovery pops back up. So when I say that, they come up with like this black screen with some writing on it. So this time it tells us, in quote, police officer Walt Chavez never imagined he would one day be in a shootout with his own brother, end quote. And I'm like, damn, we went from the baby, how much Walt adored his baby brother and took care of him and helped around the house, to, they're going to get in a shootout. Whoa. So Walt gets into the story. And he talks about that Clay had a really bad temper. And he was constantly getting in fights in school. So I'm assuming he's middle school, high school age. I really don't know. It doesn't say. But it talks about he's constantly in these fights. And Walt's mother thought, because at this time, Walt is already a police officer. Remember, he's 13 years older. So he's already a police officer. And Mom, which, I never did get Mom's name. They never mentioned it, and I never saw it when I went back in to look up details about that episode, which I typically do. I always want to look up and see if I can find what has been left out. And I never caught Mom's name. Isn't that just kind of weird? Anyways, so Walt says he decided he would go have a talk with Clay. And to see if he can, help him out. Help him through this time, this period of his life, and so on and so forth. However, he says the talk did not help at all. He says actually Clay got worse. He started getting into drugs and alcohol and was very proud of it. I mean, he had no shame or concern that his brother was a police officer. So, like, Walt tells the story, excuse me, of this one time where he came over to the house and caught his brother and a friend of his brother's doing, drinking and smoking weed. And of course, Clay is too young. Of course, smoking weed, especially back in the 90s, was very illegal. So he's like, Walt is like, he wanted him to learn a lesson because he had gotten to the point that he had no remorse for when he did anything wrong. He was not respectful to Walt or his mother. I mean, there was just so much, I guess, that Walt and his mom could take. So Walt's like, I want to teach him a lesson. So he called the sheriff's department to try to get them to come out and have him arrested. He thought, little time behind bars might teach him a lesson, might, straighten him out a little bit. I don't know. So, Walt's doing this and Clay simply just didn't care. It is what it is. Whatever, I don't care what you do. And he just continues to roll him a joint and go right on with his bad self, I guess. And, the worst thing is, and it's funny in its own way because here Walt is a police officer, but he said he called the sheriff's office 2 times to have them come out for illegal drug possession, whatever. He gave the official whatever it was he told them. And they never showed up. Like, here, right, wrong, or indifferent, I don't know. I'll let you choose. You decide if you think Walt is in the right or wrong. But here he is trying to do this, and the police don't show up. Or the sheriff's department doesn't show up. And I'm sorry, but it doesn't give you a lot of warm fuzzies about that department at the time, does it? So, anyways, he said when that happened and nobody ever showed up, he took the, got something black right there. He took the weed and flushed it down the toilet. Which, of course, that, pissed Walt or Clay off. That was money, but, well, he didn't know what else he was supposed to do because the cavalry he had called for never showed. So, okay. I just thought that was sad in a way, and I can't say I think that had anything to do with this story. Sometimes I can say, when you ask for help and it doesn't show up, that could have really changed the story, but this case, not so much. Anyways, okay, where am I? What am I doing? I need to clean up my face. So, Walt says, I just thought Clay was rebelling. Like most teenagers do. They just rebel. And he thought that he was just going through a phase. I get that. You're getting into fights and drug and alcohol and, yeah. I think most people would have probably thought that Clay was going through a phase. So now Walt talks about the stepfather that he mentioned briefly before. Stepfather's name is Roy, and this is Clay's father. So Walt says, when Roy married his mom, again, unknown name. I can't believe I didn't get a name. he seemed like an all right guy. I mean, Walt's like, there was nothing to make us think there was anything wrong with him, you know? So, but then, as the years got on, apparently he started to become mean. And then the more years, the more mean he became. So, he says and I should say he was moved out of the house. Walt was. Oh, I'm moving. Walt had moved out of the house. And he had already moved out of the house prior when I talked about this story of, you know, him coming into the house and finding Clay with weed. He was already moved out on his own, visiting. So many times when I say that he's come to the house, he's visiting his mom's house. So at one point he comes and he's visiting his mom's house. And he hears some yelling, screaming, carrying on, fighting. He says it was clearly fighting going on. So he goes and he's like going to check it out. What's going on? And he finds his mother and Roy in the bedroom. And his mom is screaming. He says his mom's on one side of the room up against a wall and Roy's on the other side of the bed. And his mom starts yelling at Walt that Roy hit her. So, and she wants him out of the house. She wants him gone. So Roy's like, or not Roy, I'm sorry. Walt gets him out. And he says as he's taking Walt out, and he doesn't say he's like handcuffed him or anything, but in the reenactment, you know, he's got his hands behind his back walking him out. He says that he looks over and Clay is in the next room, had heard everything that had gone on and was going on, and was watching him walk his father out of the house. So I don't know much more about that situation. It does say that the mother did not press charges. Sorry. So I just get the impression, and it's kind of mentioned a couple times, that Roy was abusive, had a mean temper. But another instance when Walt went to visit the house. Now, apparently Walt visited often, and every time he visited, I shouldn't say that, but I was going to say, it seems like every time he visited, there was something going on. But in this instance, he visits the house, and he finds Clay with a shotgun, loading the shotgun. So he showed up in time to see Clay loading the shotgun. And, you know, Roy's like, not Roy, shoot. Walt, I'll get it right. Walt walks in on Clay loading a shotgun. Whew, too many names. I just need boy and girl. I might get that right. Anyways, and Walt's like, what are you doing? He said, you know, I forget what he said. He said it was like the middle of summer. It was hot. He said it was not hunting season because they were apparent hunters. So Clay getting the shotgun, he didn't know how to use it. They were hunters. And that comes up later, unfortunately. So Clay's asking him, no, Walt's asking Clay, what are you doing? What's going on? And Clay's like, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill him. And Walt tells us that Clay was determined to shoot Roy. So there was no, you know, who him was. Clay was going to kill his daddy. And Walt says they get into a scuffle with a gun, which I think is stupid. Walt's, in the reenactment, it shows them pulling and tugging and trying to get the gun from each other. And I'm like, okay, somebody's got to get shot. You know, it's a shotgun. It's loaded. You're tugging one way or the other between them. This is not going to end up well. And I'm telling you, I was waiting for it. I was like, who's getting hurt? Who's getting shot? Because it's about to go down, you know. However, apparently it never did. And Walt eventually gets the gun from Clay, and Clay storms off. He's mad, whatever. And Walt then says if Clay had physically been able to get that gun from him, somebody was getting shot. Clay's like, he was going to shoot somebody. So, yeah, definite warning signs and things that you can see. And that's one of the things about this episode, is that they like to say, never thought, like at the beginning, Walt never thought he would be in a shootout with his brother Clay. And then they'll say, but there were signs. And yeah, there were signs, all right. Okay, so Clay's parents separated in 1982. And literally, it's the last time anything is mentioned of dear old dad. So, yep, don't know much more about Roy. That was the end of his story. But Walt talks about Clay, and after the divorce, or separation, I'm assuming divorce, but it just says separation, that Clay had changed. There was a difference in his behavior. And Walt says he had become more withdrawn. And another time, when Walt visits the house, and I don't find that, I don't mean to laugh at that. Because I know when my mother was alive, I was at her house all the time, or she was at my house. I get it. It's just like every story that comes out of this is like, well, I was visiting the house this one time, and whatever. So I just find the coincidence of that to be a little interesting. But anyways, he's talking about another time he's at the house and he's visiting. And he finds this tablet, which at the time, remember, they don't have iPads or tablets. They have drawing tablets, notebooks with paper. And he had found a notebook full of drawings, and it was Clay's. And it was all drawings of satanic things, Satan and all kinds of things. And of course, Walt is concerned, as one should be. And he says his mom comes home shortly after, and he's like, Mom, have you seen this before? And she's like, no, what is it? She said, I thought it was just his schoolwork. Well, they're going through it, right? They're looking at these drawings, and they're apparently, without them saying it, I believe they are a very religious family. Like I said, they don't necessarily say they are, but many times things are said that makes you believe it. So they're very disturbed and upset that they're finding this, and that Clay had drawn it. Clay comes home while they are looking at him, and he just loses his mind. That's his book. Get away from it. It's none of their business what he's doing, etc., etc., etc. And at that point, and this is probably why they talked about Walt being the man of the house, because apparently he pretty much is the one that disciplined and did things to Clay, or for Clay, or at Clay, or whatever. Not like he did anything to Clay, I guess. But, he starts lecturing Clay that him and his mom do not find this okay. This satanic stuff that he's got going on is not okay. And then he proceeds to start tearing the pages out and ripping them up. And of course, Clay loses his shit. Very upset, not happy. And Walt says, at that point, he could tell there was a change. Walt says that after that day, Clay didn't like him. Didn't like him at all. Didn't talk to him. Didn't want anything to do with him. And he thinks that this was like the turning point in Clay's story. Now, I do want to give a little trigger warning. This next part is not easy. I guess it's really probably the worst part of the story. So, if you do not want to hear it, please fast forward. I'll make some kind of sign. I'll lift up something when you can join us, because you might not want to hear this. I didn't want to hear it. Spoiler alert. I thought it was awful. However, we will talk about this. So Walt says that where his mother lived had plenty of hunting property or land for hunting. And like I said, they're hunters. So they would go and hunt. And Walt talks about this one time. He's hunting. And as he's out, he starts following this trail. It's just one of their normal hunting trails. Nothing weird or suspicious about it. It's just he decides to take that trail this time while he's hunting. And comes across a mutilated dog. Said the stomach was cut open, intestines, entrails, everything was pulled out. Said that the dog was in the center of a circle, big diagram. And there was, what was it? There was like dark marks drawn into the dirt with this diagram. There was rocks and candles that, had the points. I'm not a genius at any point, but yeah, I'm thinking sacrifice. So anyways, this poor dog was mutilated and sacrificed. So Walt says he goes home and he's asking his mom, have you seen or heard anything weird lately, because he found this dead dog. And when he does say that, Clay's in the room too and kind of starts chuckling. And Walt's like, Clay, what's so funny? You know what this is about? And he said, yes, the dog is with Satan now. Okay. And needless to say, Walt and his mother were surprised, a little shocked. Yeah. And Clay, ouch. So they asked Clay what he meant exactly. What did you mean by that? And Clay says that he and a few friends sacrificed the dog for Satan. He tells them that he does it often. It's not the first time. He's done it more than once. And his favorite thing was hanging cats and watching them squirm on the noose until they died. For some reason, police officer Chavez doesn't believe him, even after finding the shrine. So now I'm going to lift this up. If you want to come back in. Because he didn't believe him, because they grew up on a farm and they always had animals, all kinds of animals, dog, cats, and anything else he says they had. And Clay was always really, really good with the animals. So he didn't believe him. Said he was just being crazy. He was just talking crazy. He had never had any kind of hatred for anything but animal-wise before. But Walt says his mother decided to seek out help, which, thank God, right? And so he started going to doctors and counselors after that admission. And she was even able to get Clay to go to church with him, which Walt was like, that was amazing, because from the time Clay was 16 to 22, so he's sacrificing animals at 16 or younger. So from 16 to 22, he's all about Jesus. All about him. So he was all about going to church and learning the Bible. Walt said he knew the Bible, Clay knew the Bible better than Walt did. And Walt's like, this was just like a huge burden lifted off our shoulders. We're thinking, okay, finally he's going to be okay. He's getting, he's on the right track and everything's going well. But we wouldn't be here if that was the case. We wouldn't be here talking. So Walt shows us a picture of Clay when Clay was 22. And he says this was when he started going back to his old self. You can see and look in his eyes and see that they are empty and hollow. And he had showed pictures, and I should mention this. He did show pictures of Clay during his Bible phase, and he did seem very happy. He was very smiley, very in tune, and seemed to be, okay. I don't know. Can you say, people talk about pictures all the time. A picture says 1,000 words, and you can tell if, by their eyes or whatever. I don't know. I don't know if I can say I agree with that. I don't disagree per se, but I don't know. Anyways, so he's showing us a picture of Clay at 22. Says he's going back to his old self. That Clay was now always angry, like just constantly had like this chip on his shoulder. Walt says that Clay doesn't talk about Satan, but he's no longer talking about Jesus, and he's no longer going to church, and that kind of thing. So there's a change in Mr. Clay, and they're not happy about it. So in another instance where Walt has gone home to visit his mom, it shows them sitting in like the living room, and there's a guitar. Walt's like, new guitar was on the stand by the fireplace, and I'm like, hey, whose is that? Is this Clay's? And his mom was like, yeah, that's Clay's guitar. He's been playing it. So Walt picks it up. He says he strummed just a little bit, just, write down the keys, no big deal. He wasn't playing anything, just strummed it to make some noise. And he said you can hear Clay's bedroom door just slam open. Clay comes running down the stairs, give me back my guitar, blah, blah, blah. And Walt's like, I didn't even know what to expect. Why is, whatever. And Clay is just distraught, like pissed off. And he's pulling this guitar, he's yelling at his brother, and Walt says he reared back like he was going to punch me. And instinct, I punched him first. And then he says, of course, then I went and I apologized. I hated that I did it. I was sorry I did it. It was an instinct thing when, he raised his hand to me, his fist at me. So he says Clay's like, just forget it. And he went to his room and shut the door. But, Walt's like, I just couldn't forget it. I felt so bad because I punched my brother. He says, so I went up to the room. I was knocking on the door. Let me in. Let's talk about this. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have done it. Yada, yada, yada. The kind of stuff that you hear with people trying to apologize. And he said, he was trying to open the door. It was locked, and Clay never would answer the door or open the door to him. So he said, eventually I went and just left it alone. Let Clay, be angry. He deserved to be angry because I shouldn't have hit him. Okay. I doubt he would have felt the same way had Clay hit him and then he retaliated, but Walt's like, I shouldn't have done it, yada, yada, yada. So now Clay tells them that, where's this at? So Walt says it was several years after that incident with the guitar when Clay comes to him and is like, hey, you remember that guitar and us getting in a fight and you punching me? And Walt's like, yeah, I remember that. Obviously, it was pretty traumatic in my life. And he's like, Clay's like, well, I was in my room behind that locked door and the devil was telling me to take the shotgun and shoot you and Mom. Clay's like, excuse me? What'd you say? So yeah, Clay tells him that he was fighting off the devil, telling him that he should go out there and shoot Walt and his mother. He said the only reason he didn't was because Jesus was with him and telling the devil that he was not going to do that today. And that is why when Walt was trying to get in and see his brother and couldn't get past the closed door, Clay was standing on the other side of that door with a loaded shotgun pointing it right at the door. So Walt says, that day, Clay fought good versus evil, and for that day, good won. But he does continue to get in trouble with the law. And in one instance, he is actually arrested and he's in court for theft. And it doesn't give a whole lot other than, he's in the court and Walt says that, was it his mother? Somebody asked him to go and support him and maybe help him. Walt's idea of helping somebody and mine are a little different. But I've never been in the situation Walt's been in, so I don't know. I might have done the same thing Walt does. So he's like, his brother is talking to the judge, and the judge is asking Walt, what does he think? What should Clay get? And Walt's like, the maximum. Give him the maximum. He needs to pay for what he's done and take responsibility for his actions. Walt's like, yep, when I said that, Clay turned around, looked at me, and that looks could kill, I'd been dead. But he's like, I was serious. I think he should pay for his actions and what he's done. Okay. Hey, again, who am I to say anything, right? I've not been in that situation. Had I been in that situation, I might have said the same damn thing. I don't know. But apparently, the judge didn't necessarily listen to good old Walt. And he got fined. He had to pay for restitution or do something with the I don't know. Anyways, he got off with a fine and they let him go. And Walt's like, Clay was pissed. Well, yeah, I can see that. But he says when they got in the car to go home, Clay stops him. And he tells Walt, he says, the one thing I love about breaking into people's houses. He says that when I tiptoe around and I'm watching them sleep, I have the power to kill them or not. While they're sleeping, I have that power. And Walt asked him, has he done anything? And he's like, no, I haven't done it. But it's just knowing that he can. Okay. He's confessed this to his brother, who's a police officer. I get that there's really nothing Walt can do legally. But what Walt did was literally nothing. Again, it's not funny, but at the same time, I'm like, dude, I don't know. So he says that he never told anybody that Clay told him that. Never said a word to anybody. And then, in retrospect, maybe he should have. Maybe he should have said, there's something wrong with my brother, and I might not be able to legally do anything, but maybe we should watch him, or maybe Mom should try to get him counseling again. But instead, he never tells anybody. And then he says that he drops Clay back off at his mom's house. And they don't speak. Clay and Walt don't speak for years. Okay. It is what it is. So, during this time, or after that time, Clay gets himself a girlfriend. And Walt says he got himself a girlfriend and moved out on his own. And Walt says Misty was just the sweetest girl. She was nice, she was honest, and very innocent. She was just a really sweet girl. Which, I could just imagine that this is not going to turn out well for poor Misty, who's too innocent and sweet for someone like Clay. Anyways, I hope I'm wrong at that point. But you probably know I'm not wrong. And anyways, I need a Q-tip. I got stuff all over my eye. Okay, their relationship becomes volatile. And the cops are constantly being called out to their house. But apparently they were called out for many times for him actually hitting her. And Walt says and doing other things he shouldn't be doing. I didn't know what that meant. But he was abusing her. And Walt says, I just didn't believe he would hurt her. Or anyone. So I just didn't think he would. He's hitting her, so he's obviously hurting her, Walt. Right? He's admitted to you that he loves when he breaks into places because he has the power over life and death. He has mutilated and did unspeakable things to animals. But you didn't think he would hurt her. Okay. On March 28th, 1998, Walt gets a frantic phone call from his mother. She is upset. She's kind of rambling, and he's like, "Oh, slow down. Tell me what's going on. What is this?" And she says, "Clay was just here, and he was scratched up, had scratches on his face and his arms and whatever. And I think he's done something, or I think he's killed somebody." And Walt's like, "Why would you say that? Come on, dude. He wouldn't do that." Anyway, so Clay showed up at Mom's house, all scratched up and upset, and telling her he needed $1,500 so he could go to Mexico. That he thinks, now Clay thinks, he's done something horrible, and that he's killed a bunch of people. Walt asked her, "Do you believe him?" And she's like, I don't know. I see the scratches, and he's frantic, and when I wouldn't give him any money, he stormed out of here pissed off. But she doesn't know for sure if he's actually done something, and that's fair. So Walt's like, "Okay, I will look into this. I will go and see if I can't find him." Walt's like, I kind of had an uneasy feeling. And he says, I'm an officer. I'm always armed. I have my gun. And if something were to happen and Clay were to throw or draw a gun on me, I would instinctively draw my gun back and potentially shoot him. He's like, so I didn't want to put myself in that position. Okay, that's smart. So he says he calls the sheriff's office. He says, I call him and I tell him who I am and that my brother is Clay King. And the police officer or the sheriff asks him, where are you? Walt says, as soon as he asked me that, I knew. I knew. This was not good. Clay did something. He killed these people. He's done something. So he says, he tells the sheriff, I'm at home. And the sheriff's like, can you come down to the police station, sheriff's office, whatever. And he's like, yes. So Walt makes his way down to the sheriff's office. And when he gets there, he's sitting in front of the sheriff. And the sheriff hands him a file. He says about 2 inches thick. And it's all on Clay. And in this file, there was five warrants for capital murder. And I literally was shocked because I really felt poor Misty didn't stand a chance. But 5 people? So I'm like, well, who else? What else did he do? Who else did he go after? Well, we'll get there. So Walt's like, are you sure he's done this? And they're like, yes. We're 100% sure. Clay is our guy. He is the guy that is murdered. And, Walt's like, I was looking through this, the paperwork. He said, none of the names were like registering for me. Nothing was registering for me. I just was in a daze and I was having a hard time understanding that these people now are dead. He said, I saw Misty's name and it never dawned on me that she was a victim. He's like, and then it just clicked. My brother killed 5 people. He's like, and I was just distraught, just destroyed. So he says, the sheriff asked him, we are actually looking for him. Would you like to join? And Walt's like, yes. Yes. I will help any way I can. So Walt says that he accompanied the sheriff's department on this manhunt. And said while they were out and about, a radio broadcast message came up, whatever. They had seen Clay headed to the woods and he was armed. So that's where everybody went. And they were running out there and doing, God knows what else. And Walt says they get there and the sheriff, the guy in the sheriff's department tells him, you can't leave this car. So he's like, okay, I was stuck here. I can't get involved. Obviously, it's my brother. I can't have anything to do with this. So he says, I sat there for 20 minutes and it felt like an eternity. So it was just awful. And he said he hears over the radio, one of the sheriff deputies ask if Clay's brother was still in the vicinity. And the one that he'd been riding with suggests he's in the car. So they asked Walt to come out to see if they can de-escalate the situation, right? See if they can help him. Because Clay is armed. He's out there with all this going on, not willing to put down his weapon. So they bring out Walt, who in any other situation might have been a horrible, horrible idea. But Walt is a police officer. So they were going to take advantage of the fact that Walt is trained and it's his brother. So he gets out there and he's like, it was the weirdest thing because as soon as I get there and Clay sees me, he's like, hey, what's going on? Walt's like, it was like they were at a reunion and hadn't seen each other and Clay was the happiest to see him. And he said it was just really weird. And he's like, hey, what you doing, Clay? So he says he's talking to him. He's trying to de-escalate the situation. He starts telling Clay, he says, Mom, what are you doing? Mom's going to be so upset. You know she wouldn't want this. And what about Misty? She would be very upset. She would not like you doing this. And you remember, in Walt's mind, he did not see that Misty was dead, right? He said, so when he said that, he could see that Clay kind of paused, and there was this like reaction, right? He said, I got to the point that Clay was starting to put his gun down. I'm going to say there is some disconnect somewhere here, because I don't know what. I do have a little bit other information, but Walt says at this time, as Clay's starting to lower his weapon, he gets shot from one of the sheriff's department deputies. And they shoot him in his arm. Walt says it goes in one way and out the other. Said it was a tangled mess. Said it ripped right through. So, they were able to get him because he was down, and they were able to get the gun, and he was going on an ambulance. He was, injured. And Walt said that the medic said that it was really bad. And I won't lie, because when I saw that, I'm like, oh, dude died. That's the first for Evil Lives Here. He didn't. But they just kind of led up to it. He was shot, and it was horrible. And, the medics are talking about how bad it is, blah, blah, blah. And that's really all they say, except for Walt's talking about how traumatic it was seeing his brother get shot. Again, I get that. So then it kind of just drops from there for a minute, and it goes to showing us pictures of the bodies that, of the victims, of Clay's victims. And they're actually showing pictures of these covered bodies being removed from the house. And Walt's talking, he says, in all my career, in all the years I've dealt with dead bodies, he said, this was the first time it was ever personal. He said, before I could literally just kind of shrug it off. It's my job. It's what I do. But this time it was personal, and it really affected him. So Clay murdered his girlfriend, her cousin, her cousin's 2 children, and the babysitter. Children. Oh, I totally skipped. How did I even skip this? I could smack myself. When Clay was in the woods with his brother, and he asked his brother, what are you doing? What's going on? Clay says, and I quote, don't you know? I sent 3 to hell and 2 to heaven, end quote. So now we're looking at pictures of the victim. Misty is the girlfriend. Samantha was the babysitter. Shelley was Misty's cousin. And her 2 kids, Sean and Taylor. And they show pictures of the children, and they're so young. Like, heartbreakingly young. And even Walt's like, how can someone kill these innocent children? What goes through someone's mind that you kill 2 innocent children? And Walt's like, I would gladly give my life in trade for these people that are dead. I would bring them back in a minute. And he says he's really just, he had nothing, he didn't know what to say to anybody. Victim, anybody. What do you say? I get that. So Clay Smith was convicted of 5 counts of murder and sentenced to death. Walt says Clay never admitted to killing them. And that he would go at least once or twice a month to visit Clay in jail, in the pen, in prison, whatever. So one day Clay asked Walt, do you think he deserves that? Did Walt think Clay deserved to die? And Walt tells him, says, did you kill those people and those children? And Walt says Clay didn't answer him. He just lowered his head, never would answer. And Walt says, I believe whoever killed those people, that person deserves to die. He's pretty adamant. I mean, I guess that's, there's your answer, Clay. So then Walt shows a picture of him and Clay. And in another evil first, it was the day before Clay's execution. So, and I say an evil lives here first because usually I'm having to go back and research to find out where these people are now. Because when the story ends, they're either still on death row or, still in prison and mentally insane, whatever. You never actually hear the ending until I'm looking it up. Like, okay, yeah, he's either, I've had one story where the people were out, no longer in jail. I've had a couple where they did get executed. There's a couple that they were mentally unstable and unable to be executed. There's just all kinds of things. All kinds of them. But this was the first one that evil lives here. It's like, nope, he's dead. And I don't mean to take that. I really apologize because it's not a joking matter. But I was really shocked because we don't usually hear that. So anyways, sorry, I'm on a tangent again and I shouldn't have been. Where am I at? Walt says that him and his mother got to spend the 2 or 3 hours with him, the day before he was executed. And Clay was even able to tell him he loved him and thanked him for trying to help him through the years and to take care, and that asked him to take care of their mother. So Clay was put to death by lethal injection on May 8th, 2001. So he really didn't even spend that much time in jail. I mean, it was, 1998 to 2001? That's really a quick turnaround. And like I said, normally I am going and researching to find out these things. I don't need to know. I know where he's at. However, I am still going to research and see what I can find that may be different from what the story tells us. Because a lot of times the stories that we hear are one-sided. I mean, we're hearing from one person. Now, there have been times where other people have joined and you hear a couple other options. Options, probably not the right word, but opinions and viewpoints. This one, we just heard from Walt. So let's see if there's anything else. And I go clickety-clackety over to run, duck, duck, go. That's where I go. I don't even know where I go. And the first story I see, which was really weird because I don't look at Wikipedia very often. Like, it's not usually the first one that pops up, but it was this time. And I thought, well, I can get some basic information on Clay. So, Clay King Smith was born July 25th, 1970. So he was 5 years older than me, which means he would literally only be 54 right now. So young. So young. Make sure my mouth is right. Yeah, he'll be turning 54, I think. Hold on. How old am I? My birthday's coming up and it's all got me confused. So, 53, turning 54 this year. Wow. Bam. Anyway, still very young. Very young. He was executed by the state of Arkansas for the March 25th, 1998 murders. And the victims are Misty Irwin, age 20. Shelley Sorg, the cousin, 24. Her 2 kids, Sean, 5. Taylor, 3. And their babysitter, Samantha, 12. He killed them in his home, or their home, I guess, in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. So it says that Smith's girlfriend reported that he battered her and requested police assistance to move out of the house. However, when the police arrived, she withdrew her complaint and decided to stay in the house with Smith. Her body was found 2 days later with her cousin, her children, and the babysitter. And all of them were shot to death by a rifle. So Smith was arrested the day after the bodies were discovered. His capture followed a shootout with authorities near Star City in Lincoln County, Arkansas. So this is where I was talking earlier. There's something there because Walt is talking about him talking him down, but he gets shot. So was there a shootout? Did Smith try to... I don't know. So Smith apparently fled into a wooded area when police tracked him down, and he went to a house that belonged to a local hunting club. Walt didn't mention the house. I don't know. So Smith held police at bay for... Smith held police at bay for an hour with a rifle, which later proved to be the murder weapon. So the weapon that he was arming around, showing people, was the weapon. So during the standoff, he yelled at the police, "I sent 3 of them to hell and 2 to heaven." Just Walt said that. Smith made several admissions during the standoff until he was shot in the arm by police when he refused to put the gun down. And then Clay claimed the murders were drug-induced. So Walt said he never claimed or he never admitted to killing them. But now they're saying, he actually said they were drug-induced. I don't know. So now I'll go to the cinemaholic.com. Now this one is where I usually hit first. For some reason, it's usually always the first thing that comes up when I do these researches. But this time, Wikipedia was. So, weird. Anyways, Misty Dawn Irwin was born in Dacia County, Arkansas on May 23rd, 1977. She graduated high school in 1996. And she's the same age as my brother. She was bubbly and friendly and lived with her boyfriend in a 2-bedroom mobile home in Pine Bluff in southeast Arkansas. In March 1998, officers found Misty shot dead lying on a recliner and covered with a blanket. They also found the bodies of a female and a small child in the west bedroom, identified as 12-year-old Samantha Rhodes, a family friend, the babysitter, and Sean, 5, the son of Misty's cousin. So the babysitter was trying to protect the 5-year-old. Shelley, the 24-year-old cousin, her body was found on the couch in the living room along with her other son, Taylor, 3. So she was trying to protect Taylor. Investigators discovered 12 spent .22 caliber shell casings and bullet fragments at the scene. Clay waived his rights to appeal and asked his defense counsel not to cross-examine the state witnesses or present evidence on his behalf. After the court found he was mentally fit to do this, he was convicted on all 5 counts and sentenced to death. Accordingly, from what I was reading, he was writing to the families apologizing. And in doing so, he didn't want them to have to go through more pain by going through the trial and reliving it. I don't know. A confession probably would have been just as easy, be done and over with, but he didn't appeal it. So it was pretty much his verdict and he was done. Might have been why it only took 5 years. No, it only took 3 years. Fudge. 1998? My math sucks today, and I apologize. I'm really not this dumb. From 3 years from the murders, he was executed. So, like I said, he spent his last few days writing letters to the family, stating he waived his rights to appeal so they could move on with their lives. He was executed May 8th, 2001 by lethal injection at the Cummins Correctional Unit in Arkansas. And other than that, everything I was reading was the exact same as what I already talked about in this story. So, I didn't have much more to add, and I just didn't continue looking. Like I said, I didn't go into if Walt and Clay had other siblings. They're not in the story for a reason, so I left them out. I didn't talk about the baby's family, father, anything like that that is not relevant to this case. So, I just left it. However, the story's tragic. The story was really heavy at times. But thank you for watching. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear what you all think. And always open to hearing it. So don't forget, please don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Comment if you want. Spread the word. I'm trying to get back to a normal schedule. And I love you. I didn't mean to scream at you, but I do. I love you guys. Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for the support. And until next time, guys. Goodbye.